general. There you go. All right. So I'm going to start with a little bit of introduction about myself, some resources, shameless plugs, talk about who are recruiters, how to work with recruiters, and we'll end the session today with AMAs. Ask me anything.
And if you guys have questions, we are going to have a link in the chat that you can start dropping questions in. And if they come up, we might be asking them a little early. So get in there and have some fun.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. All right. Well, let's get started. This is a little bit about me outside of the UX world. I like to sing. I'm a big Sinatra person. I think that's the only songs I can sing is from Sinatra. Doesn't mean I'm good at it. I'm a huge space nerd. I my dream as a kid was to become an astronaut. I love the outdoors, hiking, and I'm into cars a lot. So that's a little about me about outside of the UX world. I'm going to play a little game with y'all. Just feel free to drop in the chat. We're going to play a game of, yes, 2 truths and a lie. If you can see this screen. So 2 of these statements are true. 1 of them is a lie. You need to identify which one is the lie. So number 1, I've never been caught speeding. I auditioned to be an Asian pop star singer. And 3, I predicted Pluto's demotion as a planet. So which one do you think is the lie?
I wish I could say I've never been caught speeding. I honestly wish I could. I'm a true New Yorker. We got an East Coast West Coast thing going here. So
I know.
that's why the Sinatra thing hits close to home.
Yes. All right, we got a mix. It looks like 1s, 2s, and 3s. Okay.
You really
All
going
right.
to guess?
Well, yeah. Keep on guessing. What do you think it is, Joe?
Oh, I do find it hard to believe that you've never been caught speeding. And knowing that you're a singer, you could have auditioned to be an Asian pop star. I'm gonna go with, even though you're a space nerd, I think I'm gonna go with predicting Pluto's demotion, because who would ever guess a planet would be demoted?
Well, Joe and everybody else, thank you for voting. I'm sorry to disappoint. But the lie is I've never auditioned to be an Asian pop star singer before.
But did you audition to be some kind of pop star?
No.
Oh.
Although I did sing karaoke at a bar once, and the KJ, the karaoke DJ, was like, "Oh, you should totally do it." Are you joking? Anyway.
I just learned that KJ is a thing. That's an actual term.
Yeah, if anyone takes away anything for today, KJ. It's a term. Cool. But yeah, I've never been caught speeding. That's the truth. And when I was 8 years old, I predicted Pluto's demotion as a planet.
When you were 8?
I was reading space books and I just looked at the patterns. All the planets were in the same plane. Pluto just happened to cross Neptune's orbit, and it was 20 degrees off of the plane of the solar system. So I thought, well, these didn't make sense.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Okay. So I hope that was a little bit of fun to get to know me. My journey into UX research started off undergrad as a Cal Bear, graduated with a biology and psychology degree. And I honestly was trying to be a pre-med because my Asian parents wanted me to be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, and that's all I knew. So after I graduated, I worked at Stanford in a psychology lab. And at this point, I still didn't know what UX was, but I had a lot of psychology experience. I worked in a sleep laboratory, understanding sleep deprivation and its effects on empathy and cognition and etc. Sleep. You should all sleep. Get enough sleep. That's the takeaway. But one day, I got a call from a tech company. And mind you, up until this point, I've never heard of the term UX. I was always thinking about psychology or health. And so when a tech company called me, I thought, well, are you looking for a psychologist? Are your employers not happy? So this was my first introduction to the fact that someone with my background could work in the field of UX. And so I explored it further. I took the leap. I left the job at Stanford, and I decided to just self-teach myself UX research. Um, I took a lot of courses, read a lot of books, Nielsen Norman group articles. I'm sure you all heard of those, and started applying to jobs. But everyone told me it doesn't matter if you just read books, if you just teach yourself. So I just keep getting rejected, no experience. Well, how do I get experience without experience? Typical catch 22. Even I'll show you one of the emails I got from a master's program I applied to. Thanks for sending us your CV. Unfortunately, your experience in the HEI field is very limited. We'd be looking for 5 years working as UX. So we can't accept you into this master's program until you've had UX experience. But I can't get a job without the UX experience.
The big quandary that we all deal with. If I could tell you how many times I've gotten emails like this, and I'm like, but,
But
how?
how? Exactly. So if anyone else is in the same position, I feel you. It's a great thing that you're coming to these events by ADP list. So I took it upon myself to conduct my own studies. Right? No one was going to give me a chance. I wasn't going to wait around for someone to give me a chance. So I took what I've learned and I created some of my own projects. Here I am in Starbucks with a sign. I don't know if you can see the picture, but it says, "Hi, I'm Kevin. I'll give you a coffee if you help me conduct my study." I made a lot of mistakes. I asked a ton of leading questions. I wasn't doing it very well, but I improved project over project. I kept doing this for a few months, and eventually just kept doing it. Eventually landed my first UX research job. So it was a period of about 6 months of quitting my job, uncertain every day, not sure if this is going to pay off. But there was a goal, and you just can't wait for the opportunities to come to you. You just sometimes got to go for it.
For all those young UX researchers or UX people in general, when you're working on an app or something, that coffee shop is a clutch move. Going anywhere that people are and just politely asking for insight because you don't have the money to do a big research study. This is sometimes what you got to do. I would love to hear just that, how that read out and what you learned from it, because that sounds amazing.
Yeah, I can give you a short spiel on it. I planned a study on the app Pandora. It's a music streaming app. And I was doing some usability testing. So I came up with some tasks for people to do. I even have my own screener. And behind this camera, you would wonder who took the photo. I asked a friend of mine because I was so nervous. I needed moral support. So I told my friend Eric, "Can you sit in the corner while I just do this?" And yeah, he's a really good friend. So what I learned was to document your process, your challenges, your mistakes even, and what you learn from those. Because when you're interviewing with interviewers, they don't want to hear everything that went perfectly. They want to hear roadblocks and how you overcome those roadblocks, just like in real life UX research work. Yeah.
That is so important. The ups and downs are really what also show how you, as a researcher, deal with it, because that's real life. It ain't easy.
It ain't easy. Thank you. Cool. So I landed my first job at Volkswagen, and up until now, I've been at these amazing companies working with all different kinds of teams, small teams, big teams, hardware, software products, marketplace products. And I'm currently a senior researcher at Upwork right now. And I've learned a lot so far, and I've taken to giving back to the community, just like Joe and Winona and the ADP list. I even see Jeanette in here. So hi, Jeanette. um, I made a YouTube channel actually out of laziness, to be honest, because a lot of people were asking me, how'd you get in? Can you give me tips? And I typed the same thing over and over again. And one day I said, I don't want to type anymore. I'll make a YouTube video. um, and I'm so glad I did, because I've met amazing people like yourselves. And yeah, follow, like, and subscribe to the YouTube channel.
That's what the kids say, right?
Yeah.
That's the term.
It's always awkward saying in real life. Uh, they, I try to, give you the real experience of UX research, teach you how to do it as well, and share a lot of tips. So check it out. Here's my little plug before I go into the recruiter stuff. Currently, I am teaching a live cohort masterclass on UX research. And this is my second cohort. They're 10 students, 18 weeks. We just learned a ton of stuff. And you might see the logos at the bottom. This cohort, I made it a point to not just learn the stuff, but put it into practice. And so this cohort, we're partnered up with MasterCard. Half of the students are partnered up with MasterCard, and half the students are partnered up with user interviews to work on real client projects. It's 18 weeks, not just research, but leadership, communication skills, what happens when you mess up, and just the real life learnings. So that's my little plug, zerotux.com/masterclass. And the self-paced, I'm currently creating a self-paced class, so you can take it at your own pace. And that's coming out soon, 2022.
It's right around the corner.
Right around the corner. And I think Winona already chatted some of the links here, but if you want to get in touch, connect with me, follow me, here are all my links. So thank you so much.
A Slack channel as well.
Yeah, Slack channel with job openings and everything. Yeah, cool. All right, this is what y'all came for. How to work with recruiters to land your job. First of all, who are recruiters? I also have a few videos on YouTube on UX recruiters. And just to give you an idea of how we work with recruiters, they're my friends. We make videos together. So I think before the call, Joe and I were talking about how important it is to maintain these relationships. And they're not just people we expend, because they're there to help you get a job. And we'll talk about more of this later. So check it out on a YouTube channel. Oops, not right now. And then also the interview process from part 1, how to handle the recruiter call, and then what to do on the hiring manager call. And then when you get to the on-site interview, tips for that too. And this is my manager, Paula Desmond. She's an amazing mentor and manager as well. So let me flip to these slides without accidentally playing them. All right, and this is the general interview process and what to expect. Number 1, you're going to speak with probably the recruiter in most cases. Second, if the recruiter likes you, or if you're a good fit to move on, you're going to speak to the hiring manager or perhaps a UX researcher. If you pass that stage, and if they like you and you like them, you move on to the on-site interview. And in between, you might do some take-home assignments, just to give you an idea. So the typical interview process, probably 3 or 4 calls, with the on-site being multiple rounds in the same day. Okay, now who are they? I'm going to share some stories about recruiters I've worked with, what their job is, what their motivations are, what are they looking for when evaluating candidates. And this is all my experiences working with recruiters from the Bay Area. If you're from a different country, I'm not entirely knowledgeable about it, but if someone in the chat, if you've experienced working with recruiters in different countries, feel free to share your experiences too. The recruiter is your connection to the hiring manager, or HM in this case. They're going to be the ones telling you about the job description, telling you more about the role, what the hiring manager expects, and their job is difficult. I mean, they have a lot of work to do. So what happens is they work with the hiring manager to discuss what they need, to perhaps develop a job description. After that, they're going to go and source candidates. So they're either looking at their own pool, job boards like Indeed, Glassdoor, look at LinkedIn, etc. And this is how they might find you, or vice versa, how you might find them. If they find some suitable candidates, they're going to screen candidates and present a short list to the hiring manager. So just know you're not the only person that they're going to present to the hiring manager. There's probably a couple of very suitable candidates as well. But since you're all here on this call, you are the top candidate. And if you go through the interview process and offered a compensation and a job offer, the recruiter will typically discuss this with you at that stage.
So now, in your experience, a lot of the comp and all that was discussed after it's offered, huh?
That's a great question, Joe. If you're offered the job, they will give you the more concrete offer. But I know a lot of you are asking, well, what if they ask about compensation in the first call and how to deal with that? I'll talk about that in a bit. So just a little tease. Recruiters, it really depends on who they are, how much work they have. So some of them can be more transactional in nature. For example, I worked with a recruiter who helped me work with a job, got a job before, and it was great. It was very smooth. I talked to them over the phone, but I've never met them in person. I've never seen them over a Zoom call either. In that instance, they told me about the job, connect me to the hiring manager, and that's the last I ever heard of them. Sometimes if you have questions about, maybe asking for a raise, this is when you might reach out to a recruiter again. Or you have questions about your assignment, or if you're on a contract, or if your contract is almost ending, maybe you want to reach out to them again. Very transactional. In those cases, you might not hear from them very often. In other times, they feel more like partnerships. Just like my friend Maddie in the video you saw earlier. We're friends. She constantly reaches out to me to see how I'm doing, if I need other roles, or if I know anyone who might need roles. And this case, she basically checked in with me every month when I was working at the job. Say, hey, Kevin, want to come out for coffee? I'll buy you a cup of coffee and just see how you're doing. When's your next role? Do you need help looking for your next role? So those really are great. Highly recommend those kind of partnerships.
And also, if they're a partnership, sometimes they give you referral bonuses if you give them a candidate that signs on. So, I think it always works. It always works for everybody in those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a win-win. It's a win-win. As you may have seen, recruiters are working with multiple candidates and multiple clients at the same time. So if they don't get back to you immediately, don't take it personally. It's good to follow up sometimes, and I'll talk about when to follow up, when to stop following up. Yeah.
So stalking is not one of the slides.
Stalking is not one of the slides.
I was all ready for that one.
Sorry to disappoint. But we all have great imaginations, so you can imagine the stalking slide.
It makes me sound creepy, but it's okay.
No. You're good, Joe. You're good. All right. Now, your experiences might be different if you're working with an agency recruiter versus an in-house recruiter. What's the difference? An agency recruiter, you'll probably recognize from the job description. If you looked on LinkedIn, you see job descriptions saying this assignment is for X number of months, or they say our client. And I'll tell you a secret. Our client, the biggest search engine in the world, who do you think that is? Bing, obviously. No, it's just I'm
Obviously,
joking.
Alta
Yeah,
Vista for all the others.
I haven't heard that name in a while. Yeah, and so staffing agencies like Robert Half, Tech Systems, Adecco, Artech, there's a whole slew of them, the whole list. Most of them are going to hire for contract roles, and you'll see that for X number of months. There are times where they might hire the full-time roles, and maybe the end company, the actual client, doesn't have time to use an in-house recruiter, or maybe they don't have enough bandwidth, so they're going to go with an agency to help find someone. What's the difference? If you're working with an agency or staffing agency, you're going to be employed by the agency working on an assignment with the client. So for example, if you're a contractor at Google, you work technically for the agency, but you're assigned to Google. So you're not on Google's payroll. You don't get the benefits. You get the benefits of the agency, if that makes sense. All right. Oops. In-house recruiters, they're usually hiring full-time, and they work for the direct client, the company. So they'll reach out to you. Same process, similar process, just the payroll stuff is going to be with the company. All right. So we talked about the difference between a staffing agency recruiter and an in-house recruiter. I want to talk about what's the difference between what a recruiter is looking for versus what the hiring manager is looking for. Well, the recruiter is, remember this slide, their job is to make sure you have the skills, just basic skills, screening you to make sure, hey, does this person have the basic requirements for the rest of the interview? And really good recruiters are going to look, they're not going to look for 100% match. They're going to look for potential for growth as well, eagerness to learn. Of course, you got to have the basics. Right? If you're looking for a UX research role, do you know interviews or usability testing? And even if you don't, that's okay. My tip, whenever you don't have a skill, my tip to answer this question is don't just say you don't know and stop there. Say, I haven't had that much experience with it, but what I do know is XYZ. I know the pros and cons of this method. I'm eager to apply it in my work, and showing that you have potential for growth. I think that's very important to show.
Kevin, in your experience, how well versed do you think recruiters are in for UX research?
That's a great question. I think if they're specialized recruiter, creative recruiters, they might have an idea of UX research or UX design, but they're not UX researchers themselves. So if you're going to go super technical, talking about multi-dimensional scaling or logistic regression, they're not going to understand that. Neither do I.
I don't know. I don't even know what you said. Those don't even sound like real words.
Yeah. So the very important thing with recruiters is they're looking at how well you communicate your abilities and your experiences to them, as you would with stakeholders who aren't researchers. In our jobs as UX researchers, we're going to be working with engineers, product managers, product marketers, and they might not know UX research very well. So if you're able to communicate your abilities and skills. And a storytell, they're also looking for that too. So get your tell me about yourself pretty solid. Tell me about a recent project. Make sure that's solid. All right. What a hiring manager is going to look for. Well, they're going to talk to recruiter. The recruiter is going to tell them why we think this candidate might be a good match for you. And the hiring manager is going to review that shortlist and decide whether they want to talk to you further. And if they do, the hiring manager will assess your skills. At this stage, there's a few types of questions: technical, hypothetical, and behavioral questions. So technical questions are, what's the difference between a segment and a persona? What's the pros and cons of usability testing? When might you use a diary study? Technical questions like that. Hypothetical questions are, how might you plan a study given a certain set of parameters? For example, let's say you have 3 prototypes. How do you determine which one's best? And let's say you have 3 weeks. So that's a hypothetical question. And finally, behavioral questions usually start off with, tell me about a time when you screwed up, or you had a conflict with coworkers.
Those are my favorite ones.
Yeah. And those are really important too, because you might have the best technical skills. You might be able to think very research heavy, perfect at it. But if you're answering behavioral questions like, oh, everybody loves me, or I avoid conflict like the plague, or I keep quiet. They're also looking at culture fit too. Making a full-time hire is, you got to think of it from their perspective too. It's pretty risky. It costs a lot of money to hire a full-time person. So they want to make sure they get the right person.
You brought up a very interesting comment in there about when people say they're very quiet. One of the things, especially when it comes to research, like, we want you to talk to stakeholders and interview people. So if you come out and be like, oh, my personality is very quiet, it does kind of like, so is this the job you're looking for? Or, so always remember, what you're going out for, and cater your answers to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly, Joe. One story I was interviewing with a company once, and they had seen my YouTube videos. And my YouTube videos, I'm like, ooh, energetic. I edit it. And in person, I was a little bit more mellow, and they were not expecting it. They're like, well, you're a lot more mellow than your YouTube videos. And so that expectation was a little bit different. And I said, you know what? That is me. This is me. And this is how I approach the research. I am excited about it. I might not show it in my face 24/7, but I do have that excitement. And yeah, like quiet is not a bad thing.
No.
A conflict avoidant might be like an orange flag to them. It's like a yellow flag to them, though. In fact, I got this feedback before from one of my product managers. You're too quiet in meetings, Kevin. And I told them the reason I'm quiet is because everyone's talking, everyone's going 100 miles per hour. I don't like to interrupt. And I just want to listen to everyone's viewpoints first before I make a comment. But I'm sure a lot of us who are, on the quiet side or introverted side, we probably encountered the situation where you have something you want to say, but by the time you want to say it, the topic has already changed. Raise
Especially
your hand.
in a meeting
Yeah.
set, that stuff goes wild. And I have
Wow.
never been told I've been quiet. Not one of the terms people would describe about me. But you're true though. It's like, and it's funny, in this Zoom world that we've been in for like the last couple of years, um, using tools like the emojis that are in Zoom to raise hand, and actually maybe just physically raising your hand in the thing, because people will they're going to notice that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's definitely helped, this technology. And it's an everyday problem for me too, Laura. I set the expectations though. If you ever come across a situation, uh, they want to hear from the researcher. They want to hear your thoughts. In fact, our job gets us probably the closest to what our users are saying and feeling and thinking, more so than other roles. So they need to hear it, not just they want to. They need to hear what you have to say. So give yourself, how I've helped myself is just raise my hand, literally, or start typing in the chat that allows you to do that. If you're in the office, I just set the expectation of my product manager. You know what? I want to say this. I need some time to think about it. And that's okay. I need some time to think about it. Or let's put a pin in that.
Ooh, corporate jargon.
Nah.
Circle back. Circle back.
Circle back. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, that's the recruiter stage, what they do and what are they looking for. So how do we work with recruiters? So I'll split it out into separate stages of your interview, from your initial contact to the screening call. So in your initial contact, they might email you a job description, or you might reach out to a recruiter and say, hey, I'm interested in open roles you have. Do you have anything for me? Or so show interest, but not too much. I've seen people reply with an essay of like who I am, this is me, blah, blah, blah. What they're looking for is if you're interested or not, and they'll ask you more in the screening call.
So now an interesting question has come into the chat, or come into the whatever thing we have going on over here. How do recruiters feel about you reaching out to them via LinkedIn? In your experience, do you do that a lot? Do you hear from recruiters like, hey, this is a little much?
Yeah, I think it depends on the recruiter. It also depends on how you're reaching out. If I've gotten emails too, I'm not a recruiter, but I do have open roles as well. And when people reach out and saying, hey, I want a job, I'm going to ignore it. If you reach out with more genuine, this is me, like if there's anything I can do to help you, if there's not roles that I'm a fit for, I could perhaps help you find people I know who can be a fit for you. And they're going to be much more receptive to that. Help them help you.
That's also how you have that partnership. The second you say, this isn't for me, but I may know somebody, that automatically helps their pool of candidates. And, like you said, keep you in the good graces.
Yeah, exactly. It's a win-win, and it'll help you out in the long run too. They'll keep reaching out for you. They'll keep you in mind for future roles. So reaching out is an art. It's an art form. All right. So in the email contact, they're going to use that time to arrange a screening call. Now, if it's an agency, they might say our client is looking for blah, blah, blah role. You could ask them directly who the client is at this point. All right. Okay. Well, let's say you arranged a call. You're going to talk to a recruiter next week. All right, be prepared for these couple of questions. Tell me about yourself and tell me about a project. Tell me about your experiences. You can ask about the hiring timeline. And if it's an agency, recruiter. So here's the difference. Sometimes we're thinking about what kind of questions should we ask the recruiter at the end of the call. If it's a staffing agency recruiter, you can probably ask generally about the role, generally about the organization, but they might not know the culture, in the ins and outs of the culture, because they're not working with that direct client. If it's an in-house, they might know more about the culture. Why did you join this company? And things like that.
So when you're talking to a recruiter, right? What are the most important questions you ask them about, like from an external recruiter about the company and from an internal recruiter about the company?
Yeah, the most important questions are, well, first of all, what are the most important questions to you? Do you maybe care about relocation. Is it remote? So logistics, whatever you care about first. And you can ask them, what's the turnover? Not directly turnover, but why is this role open? And other questions like that, if you're interested in that. In-house recruiter, I might ask something related to culture. I might ask how long you've been working there, more about themselves too.
Yeah, finding out how long people have been working at a company definitely is a huge red flag, or it's like great to hear. Like people have been there for 3-4 years at a clip. You're like, oh, so it's good. Like you
Yeah.
haven't run away.
Yeah. And this is a question for in-house people too, for the in-house recruiters or hiring managers. Ask them about the culture. Like, what do you like and dislike? If you hear too many good things, that's great. But if they only tell you good things, I'd be a little wary, because if they're trying to sell you on it too much, they got to acknowledge not everything is perfect, but see them as opportunities. Hey, we are growing and we have growing pains, but that's okay. As long as they acknowledge it, I think being transparent from their end is very important for you to know. Now, who's ever been asked this question? What are your salary expectations? How much do you want per hour? How would you answer this? Well, I'll tell you how not to answer it, and that is tell them how much you're making right now.
Yeah, hell
Yeah,
no.
no way. I'm making $15 an hour right now. There's this funny TikTok video that I definitely got to share. If you don't mind, I'm gonna find that link and then post it in the chat. Um,
While you're doing that, I've been in a circle conversation with many recruiters of how much do you want to make? What's the range? But how much do you want to make? But what's the range? And you just stuck in this loop of somebody's got to give, and I'm like, I want to make $800,000 a year, and they're like, well, that's out of the range. I'm like, so tell me the range. Like,
you obviously have a range in mind.
yeah, you clearly have something.
Yeah, this is the exact TikTok video I posted. I'm not on TikTok, but someone shared this with me. It's funny. So yeah, you want to at least ask them for their range back. The typical conversation goes like, well, I would like to learn more about the role before I come up with a fair number. So I want to learn more about the team and the role, so I have a better gauge of how much this might be. We have a number in mind. We probably do. They have a number in mind for sure. So if they're not going to give, yeah, they're going to play hardball, and you're going to play a little hardball with them too. But if they're not going to give, what are you going to do? Let's revisit this question later, or give them your range as well.
Yep.
Yeah, but never give them one
Right.
number.
Yeah, because the last thing you want to do is go through this whole interview process and then find out that, you're at, even if you give them a range, you're at the low end of the range.
Mm-hmm.
Like, make sure you tell them, like, let's say it's, I want to be between 145 and 155, but more towards 155. So if they come back and they'll be like, well, he's probably not going to take it because he already said, I want to be
Mm-hmm.
at, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. And another tip is just to add in 20-ish% to your target number, what you have in mind, but don't tell them. And then they'll probably come down and meet you where you want. So it's a negotiation game. The other thing is, recruiters expect negotiation. It doesn't come to a surprise. So if you don't negotiate, you're missing out, because they do expect negotiation. I talk to many recruiters and I say, what's your process? And they're like, oh, we screen candidates, interview them. When we give an offer, we expect negotiation. They all tell me the same thing. So definitely negotiate. All right. If you do well on the screening call, they like you and you like them. You're going to interview with the team. So the recruiter will help arrange the calls. They might even help you prep mock interviews. Um, what are some questions they might ask? Let's go through a mock interview together. These are the good recruiters. Not all recruiters do this. Recruiters will not help you rewrite your resume or cover letters. So there's things you can ask them for and things you shouldn't ask them for.
They may say if you have a case study around this subject, because they know from the client, or you can even ask that, like, hey, are they expecting a certain type of certain type of work? Then they'll
Yeah.
be like, okay, and then you have it prepped up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a really great point, Joe. A lot of times they might say, okay, you're gonna hook you up with the interview next week. They might not tell you any details. Ask them. You can ask them, what should I prepare for? Do I need a
100%.
portfolio? Are they expecting this? Etc.
Because remember, they want you to get that job as much as you want the job.
Mm-hmm.
Because going back to Kevin's earlier slide, if you don't get the job and the other candidate doesn't get the job, that means they have to go back to the recruiting pool and the circle starts all over again for them. So they want to close.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point, Joe. For sure. All right. Oops. And then if that all goes well, you'll be given an offer. At this stage, I forgot to add in the text here, but actually I do have it in the next slide here. So with your recruiter, stay in touch. Keep them updated on what you're looking for next. If you're in-house, maybe you don't want to talk about that. But if you're working with like an agency recruiter, then this is open for discussion. You might have seen this slide come up. Are you there? What's going on? We breaking up? Ghosting. Ghosting. Who's been ghosted before?
Many, many times.
I've been ghosted before too. So why do recruiters ghost? How do you follow up? Should you follow up? And when should you stop following up? So why do recruiters ghost? Well, like I mentioned, they're working with many different clients and candidates. Sometimes they just don't have time. If you aren't, if you didn't, if they screened you and you weren't the right fit, it's much easier for them with all the packets of candidates in their hand to just look at the next candidate. So the good recruiters, I think the human, honestly, we all know this. The human thing to do is to at least give feedback and say, hey, it didn't work out. And if you're a good fit, good recruiters will tell you, hey, not fit for this role, but I'll keep looking. Will they? It's up to them. So those are the reasons. It's nothing personal. Like Joe and I were talking about before the call. It's nothing personal. They don't hate you. They don't think you're smelly. They're busy. They're busy, and they're trying to close candidates.
And also on the flip
Sometimes.
side, you
Oh,
have recruiters that are working with a client that the client goes them,
yeah,
and they don't, and they're waiting and they're waiting and they're waiting, and they, what are they going to tell you? I haven't heard from them. So
yeah,
you're not going to hear from me. So I've had great recruiters that have told me flat out, like, hey, I still haven't heard back, I'm really sorry, like, I'll let you know when they get back to you. And then then it's like you get closure, because
yeah,
that's what you need.
yeah, yeah. And my tip is, when you're first starting out the job search, I fell into this trap of fantasizing about getting the role. And I'm like, oh, I got this interview. I'm gonna put all my eggs in one basket, and you should put all your effort into it. But it's gonna hurt a lot more when they ghost you. So when you're interviewing, just keep doing it. Just keep interviewing. Just keep applying. Um, All right. So how would you follow up? Let's say you haven't heard from them in a few weeks. Well, one way to prevent this is set some expectations at the end of the call. But before you let them go, you say, all right, what are the next steps? When could I expect to hear back roughly? That gives you some expectations so that you're not reaching out after one day. um, so here's how you might want to reach out. Hey, hope you're doing well. I'm just wondering what the status of the application is. Simple as that. That's okay.
All you need to do.
All you need to do. That's it. If they don't respond to you with that email, no point following up after that.
Show up to the office.
Show up at the office with the boombox. I miss you.
I'm just kidding. Do not show up to anybody's office.
Oh
Please
yeah,
do
yeah.
not.
Please, yeah, don't do that. So yeah, there's a certain stage where you should just stop, and maybe like after two and they don't respond, you get it. All right. Okay. Yeah, Joe, did you have anything before?
We have tons of questions. I have tons of stuff too for you, but
Cool.
yeah, we have some great questions here about oh, here's an interesting one. If I were to apply for a UX researcher job, even though I've been mostly applying for UX UI design roles, if research is your passion, go after it. Would it look good to say I've been a participant in user interviews and share what I've learned?
Shared with you. Yes. This is a tip I give my mentees is to sign up for user testing, user interview type of events so that you could potentially learn how research works. The potential negatives of that is number one, you didn't do the research. Number two is you don't know what the researcher was researching. You don't know exactly what their objectives were. And third, maybe the research that they did was not good. Maybe it
Yeah.
was not, it was leading questions. Maybe it wasn't just rigorous research in the first place. So you might be learning the wrong things. So out of everything else, if you could read books, take classes, do your own projects, work with a client, that probably be way down in my priority list.
Yeah, it's good to be on both sides of it just to kind of
Mhm.
get it, but I don't think it's much of a as a selling point. Here's one that is kind of worrisome. I got a recruiter once ask me to give my social security number before proceeding. Is that normal? Do not give anyone your social security number. Unless it's like, hey, we need to do a background check, they're going to push you to a site for you to do that.
Mhm.
Never give nobody your social or your
Yeah.
fingerprints.
Yeah.
Never blood if they ask for it. Definite red flags. Um, let's see what else. Uh, oh, this one is if I didn't get the offer and the final interview, should I stay in touch with the recruiters, like connecting with them on LinkedIn and checking in from that with them from time to time? I'd say
Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Jinx,
They're so instant.
absolutely. Yeah, and think it from the client side too. If you made it to the final round, they like you enough, right? And I've heard from many clients that I work at Upwork, so I talk with a bunch of clients and candidates. So clients say it's a shame that sometimes we only have one opening and we have three great candidates. We definitely want to keep in touch with these candidates, so you should too, because they might reach out later for future roles that might open up.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, those recruiters will get you on LinkedIn before you even know it, and definitely good. And it's also great, they'll post stuff about jobs that they may have, and like Kevin said, just be a normal human being. Like maybe grab coffee with them, and our entire field is based on empathy, and just be empathetic to what they have to do. Uh, let's see what else. Oh, what is a red flag for interviewees outside of the social security number? How would you deal with a combative stakeholder? That is a fucking suspect question because right away I'd be like, yo, I got a
Combative
thing.
stakeholder.
Yeah, like, do you have any red flag like questions that come up from like a recruiter that you're just like, this ain't for me?
Mm, combative stakeholder. This is a common, I would say, behavioral question, a behavior interview question, because this might come up. Hopefully, that doesn't mean that they have a ton of combative stakeholders at their company.
Would that make you
Uh,
think that they do though?
would it? No, well, I don't know. I guess for me, this is a question I might ask just because I want to see how they might handle these situations. That doesn't mean there's many combative stakeholders at my company. It's just if there was a conflict to come up, how would you handle it? So it wouldn't necessarily be a red flag to me. Um, Red flags mainly are around take home assignments. That's the thing I can think of off the top of my head. There are many kinds of take home assignments. Not all are created equal. Some are good take home assignments, and some are really bad. The bad ones are, hey, we're working on this thing. Can you design a plan, design a study, conduct it with a few people, and present us results for free? Yeah, that's a red flag. But here's the thing. Uh, I would give them the benefit of the doubt because maybe they just don't know how to hire UX researchers. Maybe they think this is the right way and they don't know any better. What I've done in the past is actually respond to them and say, hey, this looks like a project that's in flight. I'm not comfortable doing that. Can you just, give me another prompt? Or I had one person that I did this. I haven't done this myself, but I commend this person for doing it. They said, this looks like a project. I'm willing to take it on. Here are my rates for taking this on for a few hours. And the guy got paid for it.
That's just a great thing on its own. Never be afraid to like ask questions that you might wanna. If they're asking you to do like 40 hours of work for something, I'm making that money. Like I ain't gonna leave that on the table, even though
Yeah.
it's like for a job interview. There's no reason to ask for that much work.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So now one of the other things this is goes back to that question of like contacting recruiters uh, on your own, like kind of like freewheeling. So you say, let's say you see there's a recruiter from that big hot search engine Bing, and they don't have any roles for like a UX researcher, but maybe they posted a UX design role or a software engineer. Would you reach out to them and be like, hey, I see that you guys have some open roles. Do you have anything open in research, or would you just kind of wait and see if they post something?
I don't think it could hurt. They're always on the lookout and working with the client for open roles. And if you're a good candidate, they they might come to you first if they hear about a research role. Generally, though, since they are busy, they might not even respond to that. So, again, no hard feelings, nothing personal. I don't think it could hurt if you tried asking.
True. We're gonna have to wrap it up. I got one last question for you, and then want to hear your final thoughts. How
Yeah.
do you feel? How do you respond to recruiters that ask you about your current role and why you're leaving? Do you talk a bunch of shit and spill the tea, or do you just like be mad diplomatic about it?
It depends. I'm going to give the most diplomatic researcher answer and say it depends. um, I mean, you want to be honest, but also not shit talk too much. You want to look forward, right? I'm leaving this. Maybe I'm not growing enough, or there's limitations to my growth here at this company, and I'm looking for growth. Your company seems to offer that. This team seems to offer that. So I'm excited to, look forward. Yeah.
Excellent. Always lead with positivity as well.
Hmm. Yep.
So, yes, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Your questions have been amazing. Kevin, final thoughts.
Oh, amazing questions. Thank you so much. Get out there, apply, be human. Recruiters are your friends if they're partners. Yeah. So good luck out there. Pay it forward, and I'm sure y'all kick ass.
Yeah. Don't
Thank you
forget to
so
like and
much.
subscribe to his channel. And remember to connect with both of us on all the channels that we have open and book time with us on ADP list. Again, thank you so much for spending time with us. I love all this. Winona's going hot on the links in the channel. So everybody have a great Thanksgiving if you're celebrating Thanksgiving in the States, and have some days off. If not, we will see you the next time. So stay up on all the ADP list channels too.
Thank you
Great seeing
again.
everyone.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, everybody.